Okay, so I spent almost the entirety of today and a lot of yesterday coming up with plans, ideas on what to do. If you weren't around for me reading patch notes and how excited I was for it, you know that I'm playing Void Knight. The question really boiled down to what or how exactly and the progress in that regard. So the way I like picking builds in general is I like looking at changes, patch notes, seeing what's up, and then once I find like a decent engine to work off of, that's like also easier to build because you don't want like a build that just needs the perfect gear in every single slot and the perfect idols with like the perfect weaver affixes. Nah, we're not going to do that. This is my answer as to like what I came up with. So we're going Sentinel, and the idea is now that we have mastery respecs, I'm planning on doing Forge Guardian on my first mastery into Void Knight. So why Forge Guardian? Well, Forge Guardian just gives you free resistances, which is incredible, pretty much all throughout the monoliths, all the way up until you start getting blessings, and even beyond that, because it opens up so many affix slots. And the benefits of Void Knight don't really exist for you until you have enough vitality. And there's really no good way to like scale vitality on a basic first run through of the game where you have literally no gear, no affixes, no bitches. So Forge Guardian using Forge Strike is the answer I came to. But there are caveats to it. So the whole idea, the initial idea, is this is going to be my setup. And this is what the passive tree looks like. I'm going to take Forge Guardian, but this only exists because of this. I think the passive bonuses in the early game, all throughout the early game, are huge. But I don't think Forge Guardian holds up on its own. Despite all the changes, despite the buffs, I just don't think this does anything. So we're going to take Forge Guardian and then immediately start speccing points into Void Knight, because you just get a shitload of free flat damage. It's all void damage, but that's okay because we're eventually planning on scaling void damage and Void Knight regardless. The idea is still there, and that the idea is we're starting Forge Guard, and we're doing this strictly because of this line of text right here. Stalwart is fine. Stalwart is good. It's just more safety, and considering I'm playing hardcore solo account found, this is obviously gonna be worth it. But it's mostly out of like the fact that the benefits of Paladin and the benefits of Void Knight don't really give you much in the early game. But we take Forge Guardian, we take Void Knight, we take all of the resistances that we can, but prior to that, we just take every single flat damage node that we can, because yeah, it's hardcore, but I still don't want to spend forever leveling my character. I left the gear here. By the way, all this is going to be up on Discord. I'm going to post the links. I'm going to post the planner. I'm probably going to turn this into a video and post it on YouTube. But I like to keep my options open-ended, particularly in a new patch with this many updates. We don't really know how it's going to shake out. So this is to give you a general idea of what to look for and what to go for, and more to like ratify my own thoughts. So while leveling, you're just looking for the biggest, fattest, flat damage you can find on your weapons, the most armor, cap out your resistances with all of your basic gear that you find along the way. And obviously, like, the obvious choices are health, you can get for attack speed. But I don't think I'm going to be sitting here and covering, like, all of the basic shit. I'm not going to be... This is not a leak starter. I guess that is, like, a primary caveat. This is not a build. The video, the stream currently, this is not meant to be your build guide. You're not going to come out of this with like a full build in your head. Maybe you will, and I'd like to know that. But the whole intention is mostly to open up the discussion on whether or not the ideas can work. So the engine I have in mind is Vitality is insanely strong now, particularly on Void Knight. Vitality has been buffed into the fucking ether. And between all those changes, between Vitality just being worth more, having more Vitality across the tree, and all of your spells and your melee hits scaling with Vitality, either with more damage or flat damage, Vitality is like just the best stat to scale on a character both offensively and defensively. This used to be Intelligence, which is why Warlock for me was the best class in last league in my opinion. Actually looking at the stats, I'm pretty sure that was just like the best class you could play. Doubly so for hardcore, but yeah, Warlock was great, and to me, Void Knight is great for the exact same reasons. But yeah, we level through the entire thing, we play Force Strike, and when Force Strike is on cooldown, we Rive, we have Symbols of Hope, and Healing Hands. Both of these are automated. So I will hover over all of the skills, you can look at them, and in the video, you can pause and take a look at the skills. This is the tree, you can take a look at the tree. This is what I took on Paladin. It's literally just resistances, and health, and endurance. This actually goes here. So yeah, this is the tree for Paladin, this is the tree for Sentinel, and this is the tree for Void Knight. There aren't really any worthwhile points in Forge Guardian. You can take Battle Hardened. Battle Hardened isn't necessarily awful. You can take Armor as well. Like, Flat Armor is fine. And you can scale like a little bit of Void Chance, or Block Chance, but realistically, none of this is really all that worth it. But this is the idea. And we don't really spec out of Forge Knight all the way up until midway through preliminary monoliths. At which point, we hard swap into Void Knight. So I know there are a lot of Shadow Beacon haters out there, but hear me out. Shadow Beacon kind of just is the best weapon, especially in the early game. Now there's a bunch of reasons, but one of the biggest things for both Shadow Weaver and Decayed Skull is that they're both incredibly easy to actually get, and they kind of do exactly what you want. Like, if you look at the LP requirements on the levels, you get a 2 LP in 1 in 10. Vitality is significantly easier to get as an affix. And Shadow Beacon is almost deterministically farmable. They're both incredibly easy items. This just drops from the first Shade of Orbis you'll see, and probably multiple of these will drop across every subsequent Shade of Orbis you'll see. And obviously we're two-handed, Titan Heart is good. And even beyond that, you have several options. Like Titan Heart, Core of the Mountain are arguably the best ones in my opinion. Early on, you can also go with Woven Flesh. Woven Flesh is a ton of health, it's a ton of armor, and it just completely caps your crit avoidance. Obviously, as the game progresses and later in the game, you don't really want crit avoidance. You're going to take reduced damage taken from crits because you're Paladin, and it's incredibly easy for you to get. But all of this, realistically, can be just rare gear. Because Paladin rare gear is insane. Like, if you take a Terror Crown that just comes with built-in Vitality and a shitload of Echo damage, this would also be fine. A Solarium, like any of these are perfectly okay. depending on what you need for your resistances or your CDR, you can take either or. But the main thing that is important to take away from this is there's enough rare gear for you to like roll your resistances, which is why none of these have suffixes, because I don't know what I'm going to roll as I'm playing the game. But this is the part that I'm mostly sure about. I'm mostly sure I want to play a Racing Strike. So the reason I have healing hands here is early on I'll have healing hands because most of our early points will go into progressing Void Knight. I will put all the points into Void Knight, and once I get Abyssal Fluctuation, which is one of the biggest things for me that has been added here, because this means we have an added layer of conversion and defenses that we've never had before on other classes. We have, but like it's never really functioned this way. I know we had the Orion's Eye, but Orion's Eye was just like one element to another element, and even with that, it was like just a bit of like void damage reduction, effectively. This is huge because you take 50% of your elemental damage as void, and then you have so many ways to reduce the void damage taken and damage taken in general that you're effectively insulated from all sorts of damage that isn't necrotic or poison. So the priority in this is, yeah, you're not going to hit T7 Vitality immediately, but this isn't actually like a very high demand for your gearing. Like T7 Vitality will be abundantly available everywhere. With all the change to the Woven Tree, with all the things that you can get, you will be able to find this very easily. And this isn't the only thing you have to find. If you don't find a Titan Heart, you can go farm a core. A core is just something you can drop from a dungeon boss that you can deterministically farm out. Yeah, core is like late game because it's like a tier 4 weapon or item. But you can get there because this is not very rare once you can farm T4s. And this is incredibly common. So we can like do a conversion afterwards. And inherently this isn't even that bad. You can just use it while you're using a two-hander, and it's 15% less damage taken. And that's one of the biggest things. I know I've mentioned it before, but I'm going to continue mentioning it because it is ridiculous. The sheer number of less damage taken mods we have on Sentinel at this moment is ridiculous. So let me go through specifically each of the skills in turn. The reason a Racing Strike is the thing I wanted to go for is because we are scaling Vitality so hard, both a Racing Strike and Void Rift are incredibly scaled. So a Racing Strike alone, along with Void Rift, along with all the buffing effects from Devouring Orb, will fully clear every single enemy, mob, map in the game. Like, your entire game plan is you're running through, you Void Cleave, and you Racing Strike. This is automated, and this is a traversal skill. I'm playing Volatile Reversal strictly as a traversal skill. And there's things you can do with it. Here I have double jumps, so Volatile Reversal can be used twice in a row, and they both move you forward. I love this change. I don't know how it feels in game yet, so again, this is subject to change. But there's like replacements for this. I hate Lunge because Lunge is targeted. But Paranoia is also a helmet option that you do have. If you really like Lunge, instead of going for Decayed Skull, go for Paranoia. Go for Seed later in the game. You know what? Here, while we're talking about helmets, let's go over every single weapon option that I've come across and thought about as like something you could use in the skill tree. So Void Beacon is the one I've eventually settled upon, but you have so many options. And I'm not even talking about World Splitter. You could have an Apathy. Since we want both an Apathy and we want the Siphon, you can just farm for both simultaneously. In all likelihood, while you're trying to get a Siphon, you're just going to drop an Apathy's Maw. Any of these are contenders for like the best in slot weapons if you're trying to go for this playstyle. Beacon is my personal favorite. I just have a little soft spot for Beacon. World Splitter is an obviously decent one, but at the same time, World Splitter isn't something I'm personally a fan of. One, because it's actually pretty difficult to get or to find. Particularly here, considering I can't see it anymore. Like, World Splitter is great, but you also have to build around World Splitter, and I don't know, with as many defenses and vitality as I want to pack into this build, I have the luxury to play around with mana. All the skills in the skill tree so far that I have here, I've gone out of my way to avoid any kind of additional mana cost, but you still need to watch your mana. And World Splitter kind of goes directly against that. With running like as many uniques as I want to, the mana costs become more and more demanding, so I don't think World Splitter is an answer for me. In the late game, if you can figure out like the perfect gear, even in hardcore, I think World Splitter is a good answer. But I don't think personally World Splitter is worth the investments. If, however, you're worried about like the tankiness, I'm in hardcore, I'm in SSF, and I don't really want to go play around without a shield. The options I was thinking of was going for Rive instead with an Ivorine, or we go for a Nest of Nightmares, which is a new unique, and I don't exactly know how this will work out. But the fact that you get like so much crit multi, and you can scale Rive crit multi, is a decent solid pick for me. Obviously, if you go for one-handed, I can't go for Erasing Strike. But the entire point of it is Devouring Orb is strictly a buffing effect. Yeah, I'm adding the collision damage here, but this is more of like something of a happy accident, because this is the best thing I could find. That wasn't just Void Essence. Because this guarantees you will have full Void Essence, which is even more damage. You are playing a Void Knight, so you have a lot of extra. If you're at 90 Vitality, you have 30% more damage just from being Void Knight. So even though you're not really scaling crit on your spells, as long as you're scaling Vitality, all of these skills will be insanely scaled. I know there's like 22 here, but in case you want to go for another weapon, I've left these at 20 points allocated, so this is what the Erasing Strike tree looks like for me. This is what I've done with Volatile Reversal. This is Devouring Orb. This is Void Cleave. And Void Cleave solely exists so I can get this node so that Erasing Strike always crits. And Healing Hands is something I have early on. However, once you get enough points around, let's say, level 94, 95, like 95 in this case, you can put 15 points into Paladin. This is sort of what I've decided to go with. And you can go for Symbols of Hope, at which point you can replace your Healing Hands for Symbols of Hope. So this is what Healing Hands look like before I have all the points. And afterwards, I plan to switch to this. And this is what Symbols of Hope would look like. But yeah, and there's like a lot of like interesting things now that set affixes are available. I have like Xeric set just as like a concept thing. I don't necessarily think this is good or even realistically correct, but the things that will kill you once you can like convert all of your elemental damage taken into void damage, you take less fizz damage, you have a shitload of armor because you're playing a sentinel. You just have DOTs, poison damage, and necro damage as things you don't have less damage modifiers for. So Xerix, considering like most of your best choices are just going to be regular rare gear or gear you can roll on, is kind of a perfect fit. Your 2-set effect is kind of useless, but your 3-set effect with 18% less poison necro damage taken, alongside the fact that you have so much less DOT taken, means you're fairly insulated from every single damage type that exists in the game. And again, the beauty of playing Sentinel. But yeah, this is plan A for me. If I come up with nothing else, and like all of these, and this turns out to be fine, this is what I'm sticking with all the way up until base Aberoth. I don't know for sure if this can beat Uber Aberoth on account of like us just not having the numbers. I don't know how much damage Uber Aberoth does. I don't know how tanky Uber Aberoth is. So I have no idea what kind of damage I will need to fight Uber Aberoth in the first place. I do stream Cobra. How's it going? Yeah, I'm talking about the planner for well, I'm going through my plan for 1.2. I'm gonna race. But yeah, how's it going? Welcome to the stream. Sorry, I'm like struggling right now because you know what? You were right. I need 3 monitors. I'm feeling the pain as we speak. Oh my
god, I am so happy you said that. Mods, click this. 4K.
You're the mod. What do you mean?
No. I'm here just to chill. Dude, this is not my job. I don't go here. What are you talking about?
But yeah, Cobra. So current plan is playing Void Knight. And no matter what I'm going to do or what skill I'm playing, it's going to be Void Knight because if you haven't watched me go through all the patch notes, it was mostly just Void Knight. Like, Void Knight, or Sentinel in particular, is just like, to my mind, so far and away ahead of the other classes that I'm just going to play Sentinel. And the tricky part is to figure out, like, exactly what skill I want to play. So I'm just going through, like, all of my thought processes. Feel free to, like, chip in and chime in. Like, this is my build planner. I'm not planning on making, like, a build guide because, with as many changes as there are happening, and with the introduction of Uber Aberoth being the end goal, I don't really know what I'm going to play. Heartseeker is fun. I would have liked to play Marksman, but they haven't done anything defensively for Marksman, and if I'm starting, like, hardcore SSF, I'm not going to play Marksman. I love Marksman, though. Like, Heartseeker looks fun as fuck. Like, if they got rid of, like, the damage penalties on the added damage in the Marksman tree, I think I'd be, like, leaning more towards Marksman too. I was so excited. I guess we never talked about it, but I am an avid Rogue enjoyer. I love Rogue. I love playing Rogue so much. Blade Dancer is my favorite class in the game. But, like, if I'm planning on, like, participating in the race, I can't, like, realistically go for Marksman, you know? I like, looked at the Heartseeker tree. The Heartseeker tree looks pretty crazy. Like, you can kind of have it clear as well, which is, like, a super, super nice addition to it. But, okay. Like, the point with Void Knight, though, is that it's so crazy in terms of scaling options that you have, and how easy it is to scale now, considering the biggest stat you want to scale is Vitality, and not only can you roll affix numbers between tiers of items, you can also roll specifically attributes. So if you, like, drop a T7 whatever other stat, you can just roll it into Vitality as well, which is crazy. So it's just, like, the strongest, tankiest, easiest thing to set up in the game right now. Is it the most fun? I don't know yet. Mostly because, like, I like blowing screens up. And to be fair, you kind of can with Void Knight. I've been trying to play Void Knight off stream with like Spell Void Knight, and Spell Void Knight feels really, really good. Which brings me to my second point. Plan B, Spell Void Knight. So the defensive layers between the two are mostly the same. The biggest concept overall with the defensive layers is that you have a shitload of reduced DOT taken. You have elemental conversion into void, and then multiple metrics of reducing void damage taken. So it just de facto becomes the tankiest way to play the game, except for poison or necro. And like I said, now that we have Xerix, that is also an option that we have in case that is a risk. I don't think personally that's going to be a risk. I think with them reducing DOT damage and them reducing introducing more ways to reduce DOT, I don't think it's going to be a problem anymore. At least I hope not. But if it does turn out to be the case, like, we have an actual answer to it. So I think this is like enough insulation for me to not care about it. The reason all of these are going to stay yellow again, or without suffixes, is I don't really know what suffixes I'm going to roll, and you don't know what suffixes you're going to roll based on like what you're looking for. So depending on what you find, you can fill these out accordingly with your suffixes. The suffixes are mostly there to look for resistances. If you have your resistances, you want to look for percent health, but you want to look for flat armor. Because Void Knight has a shitload of percent armor in its tree, so flat armor is more beneficial. And since you're stacking vitality, you have a lot of flat health, so percent health becomes more valuable. But yeah, that's predominantly what you're looking for across all of these. And obviously for boots, you want movement speed. It's hard to get movement speed because if you want to do Xerix, it's hard to get movement speed. But boots are one of the only other pieces of gear that I can roll vitality on. Gloves don't roll it. Belt doesn't roll it. So, this becomes a very important slot. Anywhere you can get vitality, just like sink your teeth into vitality. But plan B, don't worry, we'll get to plan C. Plan C is just ride with Ivory and spoilers, I guess. But plan B, Smite. And not just Smite. It's Smite and Devouring Orb. Here, it's the exact same skill, except Devouring Orb is used for damage. And I'm teching the tree more for spell damage itself. The Spoon, I know we can go for crit. The Spoon is more of a concession for the fact that I'm playing hardcore and I would rather run a shield over a catalyst. And this is the trade-off I'm willing to take. Anchor got fixed, and Anchor is now insanely strong. They fixed the proc rate of Oblivion Wave, so Oblivion Wave actually feels fairly decent to use. So between that, and between spell just feeling decently good, this will be better clear for me. But you do lose some amount of tankiness because you're not running Titanheart anymore. I do like Titanheart, but it's a toss-up for me whether or not Titanheart is better than Core. I'm not entirely convinced of that fact. I think this I would need to test more of. But Titanheart is also significantly easier to get than Core, considering Core you're not even going to see until T4. You're going to need to go for Titanheart regardless. But I think the end goal for me is still going to be Core of the Mountain. Overstacking Endurance is actually pretty good if you're going for Face of the Mountain as well, because Face of the Mountain gives you additional block chance, and you can scale block chance, and that way you have block as an additional layer along with Endurance, along with all of the health that you have. And you also, fun fact, get sigils, which gives you endurance thresholds. This does involve like an added layer of, alongside vitality on your gear, you're looking for endurance threshold wherever you can find it. I know they reduce the number of places you can get endurance threshold, but this, I think, overall is a more fleshed out build. And again, if you're not playing hardcore and you're on like softcore trade or softcore whatever, I think Dread had a really good build for it. I don't really have the video on hand, but if I find it, I can like leave it in the description down below whenever this is up on YouTube. And he talks about going for a rune dagger and a crystal skull. So the only difference here is in your skills. Instead of taking these points of conviction in Smite, you instead take the points here in Blinding Flash, is what I would do. But the whole point of this specifically, both of these builds play the same. The only difference is Devouring Orb will crit more consistently on this build than on this build. But my immediate impression is that Devouring Orb just does so much damage on its own, you really, frankly, don't care. Like, even without the buffs, I've never felt the pressing need for more damage while playing this. Maybe your mileage varies, but so far, I think the buffs are only going to be an upside. I'm sorry I don't have the footage to back it up. I will eat my own words if I'm wrong. And you can get me banned or some shit. I don't know. Try at your own peril, I guess. These are mostly loose thoughts. This is just my plan based on what I've thought of. But yes, you are going to be running around the map. You're using Volatile Reversal still for your traversal skill. And your Devouring Orb is automated, and occasionally you just slap Abyssal Echoes and your entire screen pops. You're taking the chains for Abyssal Echoes, and your Abyssal Echo stacks with Vitality for its flat damage, and you just deal more damage, you deal more damage. You can target it, so your play pattern is you reversal, you have Devouring Orb around you, so everything very close to you dies, and anything that isn't dead, but you have like large clumps in like a distance, you just hit Abyssal Echoes, and then they die as well. You get a ton of damage from Vitality, you get a ton of damage from this, you get more damage from this, and you get crit from this. The crit is important because you actually need all of the crit and this crit here to still have a 100% crit chance along with Spoon. And with Spoon, you still need to hit... You don't need to hit a T7 on Spoon, but you do need to hit like a T6 to have a 100% crit chance with a ladle. But since you have so much flat damage on account of stacking Vitality, the biggest thing you're looking for is more damage. So I eventually landed on the Spoon. Spoon might not even be the best answer. It is very possible that a Rune Dagger is still the best answer because it still gives you more flat crit. But this is mostly coming from necro testing or testing with Warlock, where Spoon was still almost unilaterally the best thing that I could find or use. Do you happen to know the answer to this? If you put a set affix on an exalted item, could you use that exalted to slam into LP, or does it become unslammable? So if the exalted affix becomes a sealed affix, that can no longer be slammed onto it. But if you have a sealed item and it has like another affix on it that is an exalted affix, you can still slam that exalted. Like, essentially, you can't slam a sealed affix onto an LP item. It's only the 4 affixes that you have on it. A set affix? No. No, you can't. I had the exact question yesterday too, but you can't. As far as I know, from like what chat told me, unless chat was lying, you can't do that. You have to find a base item and then like use affix shards to roll onto that. But it doesn't let you do that. I wish. That would like, I think, break a lot of stuff for me. I'd be more willing to use I think I would be playing Rive almost 100% if that was the case. But it isn't the case, unfortunately. That's my best guess right now. I obviously, like, no one's played with, like, the set affixes. But from what I've been told and, like, looked around, like, I don't think that's the case. But yeah, so from Warlock testing specifically, Ladle was, like, far and away way better than, like, Marina's. It was way better than Wrong Warp. Wrong Warp is a little faster in terms of movement, but that's kind of where, like, the viability of it ends. Wrong Warp is, like, really, really good. I'm not saying Wrong Warp isn't viable, but if you're looking to kill Aberrot specifically, or, like, looking to deal damage to a boss, Ladle was still just the best. But in the context of this, if you want to use Ladle for Smite, you do need a spell crit slam. That is like a requirement for 100% crit chance. To be fair, I think if you can't get that slam, it's still better for you to run Rune Dagger. So that is something to keep in mind as well. Having said all of that, I'm going to hover over these really quickly in case you want to take a screenshot of them. You in the future, you YouTuber, you. This is what Smite looks like. This is what Volatile Reversal looks like. It is entirely a traversal skill. This is what Devouring Orb looks like. This is what Abyssal Echoes look like. And this is what Symbols of Hope looks like. So if you missed it before, we play Healing Hands here until we have enough points to have all of our points in Void Knight before we start putting points into Paladin, at which point we can get Symbols of Hope. So we can put 5 points in early and then the 10 points later once we have everything else in Void Knight. But Void Knight comes first. Like, getting to here and getting like the movement speed to me is way more valuable because the Void Knight nodes themselves are like incredible. And I haven't even taken the Vitality ones yet because I messed it up. Realistically, it should be more like this. Do this. But yeah, you're taking every scrap of Vitality you can find under the sun. Ladle did get nerfed. Ladle got nerfed, but Ladle was just like, because they added so many ways to add flat damage to your spells, Ladle just at the hyper endgame. This for context, this is like at the hyper endgame where you have so much flat damage that even adding more flat damage, it's just infinitely more beneficial for you to have more damage. Nothing gives you as many more damage multipliers as a Ladle. Like, in this context, it's possible that other wands are better because you do stack intelligence when you're playing Warlock and you're not stacking intelligence when you're playing this. The main stat you're stacking is Vitality. But even with that, like, there isn't anything else that gives you as many more multipliers than a Ladle. Like, it's kind of nuts. But just because of how it functions, it's really hard to, like, not pick Ladle. We can look through all of it again. We can do it together this time. But the biggest thing with wands, like basic wands, they all give you a shitload of spell damage. But you don't care about spell damage. Like, you have so much spell damage because your Vitality, each point of Vitality gives you 2 flat spell damage. So the only thing you want is like either more damage multipliers or like a huge amount of increased damage. Or crit. Those are like the 3 things. And the only thing that fits that bill is just Ladle. Like, would you use any other unique? Not really. We looked at all the bases. Like, you wouldn't do anything else. You would just use Ladle. I don't think Ladle needs a nerf. I think Ladle needs an alternative. Like, if there was, like, more specific methods or vectors to, like, scale a huge amount of base damage that wasn't Ladle, Ladle wouldn't be a problem. Like, either a crit-based wand or a huge, like, increased damage of a specific type would be fine. Debuffs and infections are too potent. But that's not even what you're using it for. Like, yeah, those are good. I love slows, but you're already, like, inherently... Like, the spells themselves... So, here, I'll go over the tree again. But all of your skills... Like, this applies Armor Shred. This applies slows. Like, you're already applying all of these anyway to where, like... The whole reason you're using Ladle is just this line of text. Like, even in this current instance... If you got rid of every single line of text here that I'm highlighting, I would still use the Ladle. I would still use the Ladle. Like, if this brick just didn't exist. But I'm not saying you should, like, nerf Ladle into oblivion. I'm just saying you should have alternatives to Ladle. Like, I'm looking for other things that would be, like, more valuable. The closest thing is Wrong Warp, but Wrong Warp doesn't even work for me because I'm a Sentinel. Like, I don't use Teleport or Transplant. Or else I would love to use Wrong Warp. I love going fast. That's, like, I love this. But it's just not good enough. Like, you have things that are incredibly niche. So, if you're, like, the problem is... If your spell doesn't specifically fit one of these other wands, then you have to default to Ladle. Like, let's say I'm not playing this. Let's say I'm playing Lightning Blast. And I want to scale Lightning Blast. Is there anything else that gives me as much damage? Actually, maybe Tribo Electra does. Bad example. I guess, like, Tribal Electra does, like, elemental stuff as well. What about staves? Any staff you could use? Staffs suck, dude. Like, staffs are especially bad. There's literally Wheel of Torment, which even with Warlock at its height, you would rather use a wand and a Crystal Skull over a Wheel of Torment almost every single time. Omnividence. Omnividence is good. Omnividence is, like, genuinely a good answer. You know what? Honestly, thank you for that. Omnividence is a good answer. Omnividence is a good answer. But I want to use a shield. I think, okay. If you're in not hardcore, or you're in hardcore and you don't really care about giving up some of the defenses because, like, the conversion defenses are just fine on their own, I think Omnividence is another answer. Thank you, Cobra. It's like +1 avoid spell skills. It's just like, why are you worse than Beacon? Why can't you just be 1 to 2? You're right, this is like a good alternative, but like, why? But like, why? I'm down to try Omnividence, though. I think Omnividence is, like, a good catch. You can get, like, a shitload of spell crit chance on it. You give up the shield. You know what? We can take a look at this right now. We can take a look at this right now. Go to staff, go to uniques, go to the basics, go to Omnividence. And since 1 LP slams are allegedly guaranteed now, I'm going to crit. Let's say spell crit. We slammed at T7. Hey! Spell crit is still at 45, which means if we have the base values for smite, this is probably still enough. Because base crit chance 8 plus 2, so you're at 13 base crit, and then 45 is a baseline. You have peak, if the peak is decently rolled, and you have omnividence. In my head math, it's somewhere in the neighborhood of like 100% chance, actually. I'd have to pull out the calculator, but no, genuinely, that's like pretty good of an answer. All right, see, look, this is what I mean. You have more options, and how hard is it to get an omnividence? It is very rare. It is like harder to acquire, so you can like build up to an omnividence. The spell, like the cast speed and the mana cost reduction, the damage reflected is like kind of whatever, who gives a shit. But the spell damage, the cast speed, and the void spell skills is like insane. You're not really using the melee portion of it, but it is a fair bit of spell damage. And if the problem with Omni is you won't get it until later, and if you can have Ladle early. That's the problem, though. It's just like Ladle is just so easy to get. I don't think this weapon is like strong enough to warrant like a effective level 70 LP item. Like, that's crazy, though. Like, you can get a 1 in 5. We can farm for it. So I'm willing to try it. But not props, Cobra. Like, Omnividence is like a pretty good catch. Maybe Exile Mages? No. No. We have an entire section of the tree dedicated to make sure that isn't the case. Exile Mages will not spawn less in Season 2. They have fucking guaranteed it. Which is why, again, like, Ladle is just, like, something that he can go for. Experimental Affix is something that he can go for. Oh, so I'll go over my Weaver Tree skill once I go through all the skills itself. But, okay. I think I actually did. But yeah, so plan overall is I start leveling with Forge-Knight. Because Forge-Knight or Forge Guard, the entire point of it is you get free res. And then, once you get about halfway through the monolith and your resistance are fully capped, I switch over to Void Knight. Even with Forge Guard, I still take Void Knight skills because you get a lot of flat damage. And then later on, you can remove the flat damage because you start scaling Vitality, at which point the flat damage isn't as important as some of the other quality of life things and defenses you get on your tree. We transition into Void Knight, which is here, and the reason I picked this is every single thing I could possibly need is incredibly easy to get in the game. It's possible Decayed Skull is like the first unique drop in the game. This shit drops all the time. It is one of the most common items in the game. And if you don't want a Decayed Skull, fuck the Decayed Skull. Go for a Peak of the Mountain. You don't like the Peak of the Mountain, fuck the Peak of the Mountain. Go for a Paranoia. You don't like the Paranoia, then like go for a Seed of Yggdrasil. All four of those, in some way or another, could be considered your Abyss, depending on how much you value your offenses, your defenses, how much armor you have on your other gear. But your gear is incredibly open-ended. The only thing you really need to look for, and the big takeaway is, as long as you're scaling Vitality, you have a shitload of health, and you have a shitload of defenses, and you have a shitload of damage. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Now, the Weaver Tree. This is my Weaver Tree. I wanted to interact with as many of the new mechanics as possible, and primarily because the Woven Tree is a big part of how I'm going to get my gear. Because the Woven Tree has both Woven Echoes that let you swap attributes. So if you have like a high roll on one attribute and like you want that to be a different attribute, you can re-roll it with the Woven Tree. Or the Woven Echoes. And you can like swap tiers of affixes within your tree if you have Woven Echoes. And since we're only looking for specifically vitality, as long as we have like T7 anything, we have a chance of rolling that into vitality as well. Which, like, if the gearing was already easy to get like way late into the game, it is infinitely easier now that we have this tree. This build looks free to set up and it looks insanely strong. And is my current choice like easily far and away the front runner for me for like what I'm playing. If I die on this class 5 times, I'm picking the exact same class the 6th time. But if you want me to like go deeper into the tree, I'm specifically targeting as much champions as possible. There are some nemesis items that I want to potentially try out with the build, so I'm going for more nemesis spawns. But everything is targeted towards 1, getting more woven echoes, 2, encountering more tombs, and 3, encountering more champions. I doubled down on arena. I wanted to have super arena instead of arenas, because they've actually also sped up and made the arena feel better. That was one of the big things in the patch notes. So that's here now, and I'd like to try it out. But yeah, if you want to take a screenshot, this is what my tree currently looks like. But there's a lot of like interesting things you could do with the Weaver Tree Cobra. Me specifically, I've like gone for champions, and I've cut off every single echo reward that isn't experience. And then once I have enough experience and hit level 100, I'm also going to cut off experience, and every single echo reward is just going to be gear slots. And potentially like glyphs and runes if I really, really need them. Okay, I think that's pretty much everything I want to talk about. So instead of calling in there,